Before we begin today's stories, I want to take a moment to thank today's sponsor, ZocDoc. A lot of the horror stories I read start the same way, with a small, creeping sense of unease, that quiet feeling that something isn't quite right. But sometimes the real dread doesn't come from something supernatural or violent. Sometimes it comes from the things we ignore, our health, a strange ache, a weird symptom, or just the stress of life piling up until you keep telling yourself, I'll deal with it tomorrow. I recently found myself doing exactly that. I knew I should see a doctor, but I kept putting it off, hoping the issue would just disappear on its own. That's when ZocDoc made everything simple. ZocDoc is a free website where you can search for and compare in-network doctors, filter by specialty, check real appointment availability, and book instantly, often within 24 to 72 hours. You can read verified patient reviews, explore doctor profiles, and choose someone who feels like the right fit for you. No long phone calls, no guessing games. For me, I was able to find a doctor who had availability the very next day and whose reviews specifically mentioned that patients felt heard. That mattered to me because when you walk into an appointment, whether it's in person or through a video call, you want someone who actually listens. So if you've been putting off seeing a doctor, feeling unsure where to start, or just want peace of mind, go check out ZocDoc.com, I'm your nightmare, and find a doctor that fits you. Now, let's get into today's stories. Story 1, Thanksgiving night at the bus stop. This happened to me on Thanksgiving Day, 2 years ago. The reason I remember the date so clearly is because I was sick. Really sick. At the time, there was a respiratory virus going around, and I had caught it just days before. By Thanksgiving, I was past the fever and the contagious stage, but I still had intense body chills and a cough so violent that I couldn't go more than a few seconds without hacking. My voice was barely usable. It was Thanksgiving night, and I was the only person there. That's when a car pulled up. There were several men inside, all speaking another language and laughing loudly. I assumed they were just friends dropping someone off. After a moment, one of the men stepped out and the car drove away. The station was large, and I stood a little distance from the bench since I was coughing nonstop. Despite that, the man walked directly over and sat down right next to me. I didn't think much of it at first. I kept my eyes on my phone, refreshing the bus schedule, leaning forward occasionally to check the street for headlights. A couple minutes passed. Then I felt something on my shoulder. Before I could process what was happening, the man had stood up and wrapped his arm tightly around me. Work it, not gently. He pulled me into his side. My mind went completely blank. I froze. After a moment, he mumbled something, asking if I was okay. My voice barely worked, but I quietly said I was fine and just waiting for the bus. A few minutes later, he let go and sat back down. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me, but I kept trying to rationalize it. Maybe he thought I was sick. Maybe he thought I needed help. I knew those excuses were ridiculous, but I was trying not to panic. Then he did it again. He stood up, wrapped his arm around me a second time, and this time his hand moved, stroking my back. I was wearing a thick puffer jacket, but I could still feel the pressure. I noticed he was over 6 feet tall, easily twice my weight, and wearing a bandana-style face covering. It was late 2020, so that alone wasn't unheard of, but combined with everything else, it terrified me. We were completely alone. When I finally saw the bus approaching, I stayed still until it slowed, then slipped out of his grip and quietly said, "My bus is here." He responded in a way that made it clear he intended to follow me. I should have told the driver, but I could barely speak, and I didn't know if he had a weapon. I was panicking. Once on the bus, I chose to stand. I knew he would have to sit because of his size. He said the snow made everything look beautiful. The drive was long and slow due to icy roads. By the time I arrived, it was pitch black. Scott lived in an old wooden house on the side of the mountain. Few neighboring houses, total isolation. The moment I saw him, something felt wrong. He spoke slower than I remembered, paused mid-sentence, forgot his words. The house was sparsely furnished. A couch, a table, chairs, antique decorations. Across from the couch was a long, dark hallway leading to empty guest rooms. That hallway bothered me. The first night, I left the light on. At 2 a.m., I woke to the sound of someone sprinting upstairs. back and forth, then silence. The second night, I heard scraping from the hallway, then a tap on the wall behind me. But the third night, I woke up unable to move. Sleep paralysis. At the end of the hallway, Scott stood in the darkness, watching me. Then he turned and walked into a guest room. When I checked, someone was standing by the window, but Scott was asleep upstairs. When I asked him who was downstairs, he shrugged. I left in the middle of the storm. As I drove away, I saw a silhouette in the hallway window. Scott never explained. He never reached out again, and whatever was in that house, I hope I never see it again.